Hello and welcome to another edition of Mjolnir at the Movies, or it might be Mjolnir at the Miniseries, because we're going to be looking this episode at Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid in general. So, now I wrote an article some years ago, 3 years ago in fact, about the Karate Kid, so I'll probably be referring to that. If you haven't read it. If you have, well, it'll be a bit of a rehash, but there'll be a lot of new stuff in, because we're going to be focusing more on the series Cobra Kai. But you may find that the stuff on the Karate Kid, you may have heard from Richard Spencer, because he actually pillaged that article for his podcast on the Karate Kid. And I know it did because the podcast came just after there was this conversation on Stormfront, which is the white nationalist network, in which I actually linked to my article. So,
Damn plagiarizer.
yes, well, this happens quite a lot with the alt-right. They steal my stuff and don't give me credit for it. So there's another one. Place called National Vanguard, I notice, has been pillaging my stuff without asking. So anyway, and I have nothing to do with that website. So if anyone sees my stuff on there, I have nothing to do with it. They've took it without my consent, and without me asking for it. But anyway, now back to Cobra Kai. Now, you actually asked me to watch Cobra Kai, so
Yeah, I did. I did.
so I'm going to throw the ball in your court then. Why on earth did you get me to watch this?
Because it's very, very popular and pretty much all my, I guess I'm technically considered all my millennial friends and Gen Z are all into it, so I thought it was timely.
Yeah, this does seem to be extremely popular at the moment.
Yeah.
Why do you think this has got so popular? Actually, we'll get to the nitty gritty on that, I think.
I think part of it is because, like we talked about before, the original Karate Kid was so popular, and some of their sayings ended up in the lexicon, like wax on, wax off kind of thing. Um, and I mean, I remember, I grew up in the 90s, but I grew up watching that movie, and Johnny was my first crush.
Yes, the blonde boy,
Yeah,
Johnny.
yeah. Yeah, he's a good looking guy. And I know, yeah, a lot of people grew up watching that movie in the 80s and the 90s, and yeah, it was pretty popular. So
Yeah, I mean, I watched it the first time around, of course, because I'm of that age.
yeah,
And I think I was thinking about why it's all come back, and why it's so popular and everything. And I think a lot of it has to do with this nostalgia that's been built up for the 1980s.
yeah, yeah.
This
I think
seems to
so
have
too.
come back, and particularly it's come back on the right, or what's perceived to be the right, at least, because they tend to be people who are in love with Reagan and all that kind of era, which is not really right wing at all. It's liberal capitalists.
No,
Yeah, you get a lot. I don't know if you've noticed in these series, but you get a lot of 80s referencing.
you do. Yeah, yeah. It's all kind of supposed to bring back nostalgia for that time, but at the same time, it's such an inversion.
Yeah, that's right. This is all part of deconstruction, of course, the deconstruction that's going on of our culture at the moment. One thing I noticed is that there's a lot of young characters in there, and this is probably the same actually of the young in general, who have a nostalgia for an era that they never experienced.
Yeah.
And you get, for example, that kid in the hardware store, I think it is, who notes his Johnny's Metallica
Yes.
T-shirt. And he's into Metallica, even though I mean, Metallica's still going, of course.
Yeah.
but really that was my era. And you also get Johnny saying, you know, what's this shit that you're listening to? You know, you should put on some AC/DC. So there's the whole kind of retro scene coming back, and Johnny, of course, has still got that old car that he's had for since the 1980s.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a Chevette, is it?
No, I think it's a Firebird. I think that's what it's supposed to be. It's been a while
Ah,
since I've. Yeah.
it's a Pontiac. Okay, I
Yeah.
not don't really know American muscle cars that well, but
It's kind of funny because in your article you said that the message of the movie is, oh, we're coming in to take your women. The show is so 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 much worse than that. What they did to the character of Johnny is just I can't even. Um, and it's ridiculous too. It's not realistic. They literally have Johnny in the movie. Daniel was living in Reseda, which is a very very shitty part of LA. For those of you who don't know, and Johnny is living in Encino, which is a very wealthy part of LA. And then you have in the show, you have Johnny not only living in Reseda, but living in Daniel's old apartment, while Daniel is now living in Encino. And I think that was deliberate.
very very much so. There's this idea of the roles are now reversed kind of thing, and Johnny's less of an asshole because he's poor, and Daniel is more of an asshole because he's rich. So you've got this sort of easy pleasing morality almost that
Yeah.
somehow poverty makes you a better person. Although there is a certain amount of truth to it, and this is very much a rightist idea. It goes, it's an idea that is so old that you can even read it in Sallust, our old friend Sallust, the Roman philosopher and
Yeah.
historian. But he talks about it as luxury, that luxury breeds corruption, and that is a truism. I don't think it's money as such, but certainly being spoiled and becoming involved in all that luxury lifestyle and everything certainly corrupts the soul. Uh, this is something actually that if you look at the Soviet bloc, why is Europe in the Soviet bloc so much more nationalistic, so much more proud of its traditions, and has a more ironclad nationalistic movement than in the
In fact,
West?
yeah. In
It's
fact, I was. Yeah, we
sorry.
talked about this before. I was gonna write. I was thinking of writing a book somewhat along those lines, and yeah,
Yeah, it's odd that the repression, that the state repression and everything of people and the poverty uh, made people more mentally strong.
yeah. But however, I would like to say that at the same time, um, poverty doesn't necessarily make you a good person, because if you see in areas where there's a lot of poverty, you see people desperate to make money any way they can, and you see people, drug trafficking, human trafficking, all kinds of things. People do terrible things out of desperation. So, you know,
Absolutely, but well, there's sort of two sides to poverty. One is sort of abject poverty.
yeah.
I would describe it as where there is a kind of a hopelessness, and then the worst kind of people end up in that. But I think a bit of struggle is important for the human
Oh,
psyche.
absolutely. I would agree. And that's why, a kid, or really anybody, needs things to challenge them so they can grow.
Hmm.
Um, but the thing was in the original movie is that, Johnny wasn't just a spoiled kid. He did have, he had his karate, he had, things to, I guess, better himself. So the thought of somebody like that ending up like that is just, to me, it's not realistic.
No,
And
that's right. I mean, as I say, you can be rich and have good morals. It's not about wealth as such.
yeah,
It's more about the attitude to that wealth.
yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. I just found that whole yeah, role reversal kind of disgusting, and it's almost like, I don't know, maybe it's almost like a gloating kind of thing, like, oh yeah, look.
Yeah, it is. It has this sort of Judeo-Christian idea of a divine punishment almost by the script writers that the meek become the strong and everyone's roles are
The meek shall
reversed.
inherit the earth. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, how meek was Daniel really? I mean, I think he was very much falsely meek in the original films.
Daniel was constantly instigating in the original films.
That is very true. In fact, I mentioned it in my article, but other people had mentioned it before me, and that is that Daniel. And there was this video as well where
Yes,
you had
Daniel was the real
yeah,
bully.
that's right, Daniel was a real bully, and you sort of you got that in the series actually where Johnny gives his account of how things went, because of course in the film everything is seen from Daniel's side,
Yeah,
because he's the
yeah,
hero and Johnny's the bad guy, and you don't question that. Certainly, the ending of the first film is interesting because Johnny is seen as a sportsman,
yes.
and Daniel actually, if you look more into it and sort of actually analyze it a little bit more, Daniel is not. He doesn't give a shit. Uh,
No,
he's,
you know,
I'm the winner, and that's it. Whereas Johnny is magnanimous in defeat, even though, of course, he was beaten by an illegal move, as is actually mentioned in the series.
yeah, which is that. See, that's another thing that I don't like about the series. In the series, they have it like, oh, this defeat ruined his whole life, and if that had been the case, in the movie, he would have complained. In the movie, if he knew he'd been beaten by an illegal kick, he wouldn't have set aside his own feelings and personally handed him the trophy.
Ah, but would he? Because if he was so magnanimous in defeat and he didn't want to sort of bellyache about
Yeah,
it, then uh, he wouldn't have done that. He would have just accepted the defeat.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
that is a sort of a mark of Johnny's character actually that actually he has a lot of good in him, but in this particular series you get a lot of this idea of atonement, and you for something that he has nothing to atone for actually,
yeah.
but yet he there is this idea of atonement coupled and bound together with woke politics.
Yeah, I didn't really see racial issues as much in the movie. If you remember, in the movie, the dojo is just a bunch of blonde boys, and in Johnny's new dojo, there is not one single boy who looks the same as the old dojo. They're all, different races. Um, there's maybe two white boys, but they're both extremely scrawny, extremely effeminate looking, very dark hair. There's nothing of the old Cobra Kai and the new Cobra Kai.
That's right. I wouldn't say there's nothing really about race in the first film. I think there's a lot,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
it's just done
it's
more subtly.
yeah. Sorry. I should yeah, I should take that back. It's yeah, like you said, it's far more subtle, to the point where I didn't recognize it, but in the show, it's very in your face.
I'm actually glad to see this.
Yeah,
I'm actually happy that we've got all this woke politics in films and in series and the entire entertainment industry, because I saw all this kind of shit in the stuff from the 80s and from the 90s, and if you tried to tell people, they would go, oh, piss off. What are you talking about? Because they wouldn't see it.
it was more subtle. Yeah.
That's right. And of course it's far more corrosive and it gets far more into the marrow when it's more subtly done. So I'm actually happy that it's in people's faces now.
Another thing that I found amazing is that, yeah, like we talked about before, the show seems to imply that the only way that Johnny can atone for, having been the bad boy in the original movie is by basically embracing other races, and you see it with his dojo because, like you said before, and you saw it too. Was there? No, there was not one boy who resembled the original Cobra Kai dojo. Not one. They were completely other races. They even threw in some girls in there, including a fat girl.
Yeah, well, in the original dojo, and I've got a picture of the
Yeah,
original dojo here. There's one token black kid.
and he has no lines.
No, that's right. Johnny's friends are all sort of very typically Nordic-looking young
Yes,
men.
yeah. And I couldn't help but think, maybe this is just another way of saying, the writers telling us that your time is over.
Absolutely, yeah. Although there is a certain amount of truth in this, in that if you look at the demographics of Risada now, it is heavily influenced by immigrants. If you look at that demographic of youngsters, whites are in an extreme minority. They're under 20%.
Although it's like I said, the TV show does seem to be celebrating that fact, and I
Oh,
also,
oh, oh, it is, but of
yeah,
course, if you look at it from another perspective, from our perspective, it's actually a bit of a wake-up call, or should be at any rate.
yeah, that's a good point. And I also noticed, I'm sure you noticed it too, that they've taken the character of Johnny and they've turned him into Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, very much so. It's funny because actually in the very beginning, I mean, his first line is, "Oh, more immigrants,"
Yeah, and
where
and what is
and yet that's very quickly changed.
yeah, within the span of an episode.
Yeah, which doesn't really, it doesn't make sense at all.
No.
That's not character development. You can't just go from one thing to another very quickly like that.
Yeah, with no reason whatsoever, and he decides to take on this Hispanic boy called Miguel and basically turn him into his surrogate son, while he has no real relationship with his actual son.
Yeah, because his actual son, of course, ends up getting taught by Daniel.
Yes, yeah, and then they end up fighting in a tournament, and all I can think is, what's the message there? Are they trying to say that, you should favor a racial other over your own children?
Yeah, there's very much a deconstruction of fatherhood. Although this was actually in the original film as well, because
Yeah.
because you notice that Daniel's father is not on the scene at all, and he
No.
gets a racial other father figure.
Yeah. Yeah. You do see that, but I almost feel like it's more in your face with Johnny because, at least Daniel was quite swarthy. You could almost put him in another category. Um,
Well, yeah, there is that sort of
yeah,
the Jew in the film as an Italian
yeah,
thing going on, which I mean it happens quite a lot. Does that? The big one, of course, was Happy Days, in which you had Arthur Fonzarelli, who was actually played by a Jew, Henry Winkler. And he's meant to be this cool guy and everything, who's very dark and so on. But he's basically the Jew in the series, if you like, um, but is being presented as an Italian, and I think that that's what's going on there.
yeah. And with Johnny, it's again, it's more in your face. It's more telling you because again, Johnny has very Nordic looks, and he's choosing to take on this this Hispanic as his surrogate son. Um, and not only that, it actually gets much worse because if you watch further on in the series, you see him starting to go out with the boy's mother, which is just all kinds of disgusting to me.
Yeah, and again, it's quite illogical. If he was against immigrants and immigration, why would he suddenly go out with the boy's mother?
Exactly. And this woman is so dark. She looks not just her skin color, but her hair texture too. She looks like she has some African in her.
Hmm. Yeah, I've seen her. She's got that sort of crinkly kind of hair, hasn't she?
Yeah, and it makes no sense. If you look at, like, for example, the original movie, the girls that Johnny goes out with, they again have more similar look to him. And even the woman who plays as his ex and the mother of his son, again, she looks like a normal white woman. So it it doesn't make sense. Like your what you're sexually attracted to isn't going to change just like that.
Yeah, and a normal, healthy sexual attraction is to be attracted to someone who is sort of like you, is of your people and so on, because you want your children to resemble you, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have somebody with darker hair or lighter hair than you, but I feel like as long as their facial features somewhat resemble yours, your kids will somewhat resemble you too.
Yeah, and not when we're talking about resembling, we're also talking not just skin deep, but beyond the skin, because of course people who are different on the outside are not going to be the same on the inside. That's a logical
Yeah,
fallacy. If someone's different on the outside, they're going to be different on the inside as well. So they're not going to be able to relate to you that well either.
yeah, exactly. And just everything. The Hispanic culture is completely different than your average white American culture. That relationship would not work out.
No, that's right. In fact, those kind of mixed relationships tend to end in divorce and so on, or worse.
And there's actually a scene in there, in in the show where he has this cringeworthy, and I mean truly cringeworthy scene where Johnny has a fantasy about Miguel's mom, and I wanted to just puke.
I haven't seen that episode, and I won't be watching it either. Um,
Good.
I must point out here, viewers or listeners, I should say, that I've only seen the first two episodes of season one and the first episode of season two, because that's all I could find for free. I'm not paying for this shit.
I was gonna say you can I mean you can watch it on Netflix if anybody wants to.
And I'm not paying for Netflix either.
It's pretty terrible, though. It really is. I can't even. It they also seem to imply another thing on the show is that Johnny is stuck in the past. They make him into a moron who can't figure out, who doesn't understand how a computer works, who doesn't understand how to install Wi-Fi, which again doesn't make sense because if he's a handyman, he would know how to install Wi-Fi. Oh, that's another way he's like they turned him into Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi was also a handyman.
Yeah, and in fact, he does the same job, or is asked to do the same job that Daniel asked Mr. Miyagi. Miguel asked him to do exactly the same job. It was the water cooler.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, yeah. It's ridiculous. You know, everything. They've completely turned him into Mr. Miyagi, and it again, it doesn't make sense for the character.
No. And going back to fathers as well, we find out that Johnny doesn't have a father
Yeah.
either, and Miguel doesn't have a father. Where are all the fucking fathers in this series?
Yeah, and he's kind of an absentee father himself. So
Yeah, that's right. And he's an absentee father. That's right. So everyone's got these kind of surrogate fathers and everything. It's really kind of done to death. It's really beating the message with a hammer, really.
yeah, really beating the dead horse at this point.
Yeah. The idea is, of course, that the father doesn't have to be biologically related to. Oh, am I using a Jewy accent there? That may have just been subconscious there. Who was it created by? Oh, John Hurwitz and Hayden Schlossberg. All right, okay, that's why.
Yeah, but the thing is that I mean, most people do have a father in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, they're seeming to imply that, a father is not important. Anybody can be your father, just as long as he teaches you some karate. He'll be your daddy.
Exactly, yeah. But they're really pushing that message, and it's not a healthy one at all, because we know that people who don't have their real fathers around, youths, particularly male youths, are incredibly dysfunctional.
Oh no, not just the male youth, the female youth too. If you look at girls who grow up without fathers, it's been proven that these girls are far more likely to be more promiscuous than their peers.
Hmm. But of course, the left wants that.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, spread STDs, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
do
so
drugs. Yeah.
so the idea is that Johnny has had well he's sort of got he's got this stepfather who actually is interesting that stepfather figure that Johnny had. I forgot what he's called. He's called Sid Weinberg
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, because he's obviously a Jew, and he's obviously a stereotype of a Jew as well that they've thrown in, which quite surprised me. He was sort of that greasy palmed, fatty
Yeah.
type Jew, with lots of money, who pretty much bought his mother, and was and wanted her because, in his own words, oh, she had beautiful blonde hair and she was tanned, and he really does sort of lay it on, and you feel quite disgusted and think of Harvey Weinstein and so on.
I don't know. Like, do you think that's just their way of messing with us?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think that they can't help themselves. I think that certainly part of their nature, if you like, is deconstructive of others, is to wind up others, is to really grate against other people. I don't quite know why that is and how that evolved. Probably because they've lived among other peoples for so long. I think that has to do with it, and certainly quite a number of philosophers mentioned this in the past, that basically because they don't build their own nation states, they have that kind of attitude. They have, of course, their own nation state now,
Yeah.
but they still want to leech off other people, and that, of course, is causing a lot of the problems in the world. They should, you could describe me as a Zionist if you like. I think they should all go to Israel and make a success of that country. And I don't care about the Palestinians. They can sort that out among themselves. The Palestinians are, after all, just Arabs to me, and there are a lot of Arab nations there, and they can sort of fight it out among themselves on who gets what bit of land. But the Jews should go down there, and if
I
they
agree.
and they
Yeah.
can go off and make a success of their country and leave us alone. That's my view of things. But anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to the movie though, or sorry, not the movie, the TV show. Yeah, it's almost like they've done everything they can to just take a giant crap on this character.
Yeah, it's very true, and of course we know that the blonde, particularly the blonde male, is often deconstructed in these kind of series and films. The redhead gets even worse, to be quite honest, even worse treatment.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've heard the studies. I don't believe them. I think that's just their form of propaganda. Oh, hi, baby. We'll be having some company here. Yeah, it's Oh, there you are. I was wondering where Bambi went. Um, but yeah, no, there are all these supposed studies claiming that women only want dark-haired men. Women are turned off by blonde men. Women are turned off by red-headed men. I'm sure you've seen those.
Yes, of course. Who funds the studies? That's
That's
because
yeah.
the results are predetermined by who funds the studies. That's always the case.
Oh yeah, yeah, and in any scientific field, the only way you can do research is if you get the funding for it. So, yeah, and you know how these universities are.
Yeah. And strangely, Jewesses and sort of non-whites tend to be very attracted to me. So that's
I've noticed that too. I've noticed that too. In my my university, they do tend to go for the blonde boys. Haven't really seen any redheaded guys, but they'll probably go for those too if they can.
they're quite rare where you are. So
Yeah. Hello,
mhm.
little one. Yes, but and, that might explain why they have Johnny hooking up with that Afro Caribbean looking woman.
Yeah, that sort of sort of Puerto Rican type, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really, yeah.
yeah.
Or something. It doesn't make sense that he would train all these losers because he despises them as well. So why would he want to train those who he despises?
It
That
it
doesn't make sense to me at all.
it it literally makes no sense. It's like he's going out of his way to find the biggest losers he can, and he's like, I'm gonna teach you to be tough.
Yeah, and there's not just the ethnic side to it.
Mm.
There are other sides to the woke politics as well that are they
There's the
sort of filter in later, don't they?
Yes, there's the gender side to it. I guess you haven't seen this episode yet because you're not paying for it.
Nope.
But there is a scene in there where Johnny, in his extremely, I can't get over how scrawny this Miguel kid is. And look, like we discussed before, you can't, if you're going to do martial arts, you can't have too much muscle mass, but at the same time, you can't have too little either.
That's
You
right.
know, this kid looks like you could snap him in half.
Yeah. And although that's quite similar to Daniel in the film, because Daniel is
That's
very
true. Yeah.
scrawny.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, Miguel in the TV series decides to bring on some girls to fight in their karate dojo also. And Johnny says something along the lines of, well, I can't have girls sparring against boys. I don't remember exactly how he put it, but he basically said that they could get hurt.
Which is true.
It is true. And then Miguel's like, no, but this girl is kick ass. Look, she totally kicked my ass. And this fat girl comes along, and within the span of a minute, Johnny's like, oh, never mind. Girls can join. I totally changed my mind.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of really bad script writing, but yet this is the problem when you get politics entering into a script, because things suddenly don't start to make sense on the basic
Yeah.
level of character development and thread of logic.
Yeah, and also, if there's any ladies listening to us, please hear me out. We're not being misogynistic here, but you can't kick a guy's ass. I'm sorry.
No, this is true that there is a good reason why men and women do not compete against each other. It's bad enough in athletics to be a complete disparity between men and women in events, but to put a man and a woman together in a combat sport would lead to women being brain damaged, severely hurt, maimed, and even killed. And this was brought to a crux, if you like, because with all this transgender kind of thing going along, because you've got women competing against men, basically.
Biological
Yeah,
males. Yeah.
biological males who've had surgery. Essentially, it's cosmetic surgery. That's all it is. But they're still men,
Yeah.
and they've and of course there was this particular one, and he basically went through the entire MMA roster, and people started saying, whoa, hang on a minute, someone is going to get severely hurt." I mean, even South Park satirized it, but actually the satire was real life anyway.
Yeah.
So what can you do? You have a situation now where men are saying that, oh, I've always felt like a woman, and suddenly being allowed to compete against women in all these sports, and they're dominating the sports. Well, that was a surprise, wasn't it? And it's absolutely ridiculous. Just because you play with language, it doesn't mean to say that it trumps biology. It doesn't.
No, no, it does not. And it is frustrating because people should see that yes, there is a real difference. And I don't think that someone who understands this is going to be like, hey, wait on, hold on a minute, that's not okay. And then a minute later being like, oh, never mind, he totally changed my mind.
Uh,
That's bad writing too.
It is absolutely. So there is a complete deconstruction of the Johnny character, but it doesn't even make sense. Well, the thing is about deconstruction theory is that you undermine reason itself. So
Yeah, and
all of a sudden you don't need kind of cause and
it
effect
doesn't
and
need
things
to
like
make
that.
sense.
Yeah, that's right.
And you see that, like, for example, in the original movie you never ever see Johnny hitting a girl
No,
because
that's right.
yeah, presumably he understands that there is a strength difference between men and women, but as an adult he seems to forget that.
Yeah, it doesn't. If you look at the dojo, actually, the original dojo in the Karate Kid film, they're all male.
Yes, all of them.
Yeah.
Kreese doesn't have girls sparring against the boys
Hmm.
because
Kreese.
Yeah,
Kreese comes back actually, doesn't he?
yeah, he does. He does. He
So
does at the
I've
end.
seen
Yeah,
some clips. I've seen some clips. You see, so
yeah, he does. He does at the end of season one, and even though in the second Karate Kid film, Kreese was so pissed off about Johnny losing that he like tried to strangle him to death. Johnny decides, you know what? Even though this guy tried to kill me, I'm gonna let bygones be bygones, and let him help me out with my karate dojo.
yeah. Again, that is completely unrealistic. You wouldn't want an idiot like. And this is after they have a massive fight and everything.
Yeah, yeah. They have a fight. They punch each other out, and then the next morning he's like, well, okay, I feel better now. We punched it out.
Yeah, and
Come back, yeah.
suddenly you feel sorry for him. Why? Why would you do that? It's nonsense.
Yeah, if somebody tried to kill you and they showed up years later and they were like, hey, let's be friends again.
Yeah, but he doesn't even do that. He attacks him.
Yeah, yeah.
Attacks him again. It's absolutely ridiculous. And
It,
so I haven't watched any of the episodes with Kreese in. How
yeah.
does that develop?
Well, initially he's happy to have him there and help him with his students, and that's another thing too. Kreese is shown as being, well, we know how Kreese is in the movies, and Kreese is totally impressed by all these loser kids,
Right.
and thinks that Johnny's doing a fine job bringing them all in.
Again, this is absolute nonsense because it completely undermines the character that he is.
Yes. How is he fine with this? Again, like you said, in Kreese's original karate dojo, he had no female students.
Hmm.
He's totally cool with the female students sparring against the male students in the show.
This is weird. So what is Kreese's function exactly in the series? Because I don't see what he can possibly bring to the series actually.
Yeah, well,
If
he's
unless he's sort of undermining Johnny and trying to get the dojo back or something
he
like
he,
that. I don't
he,
know.
he does eventually do that in the end. He's you see him kind of giving some of the other students bad advice and telling them to keep their feuds with other students going.
Hmm.
And then in the end, this is absolutely ridiculous. You see all these teenagers having problems with each other, their little love triangles, which we're supposed to care about, but honestly, I find it really hard to do so.
I mean, Miguel is a very difficult character to care about anyway. So
Yeah, and what's really funny is in the end of season two. So you see all these stupid characters all kind of going to a party where they all get drunk, and Johnny's son Robbie, who, by the way, the actor looks nothing like him, and the mother was shown to be promiscuous. So how is Johnny believe that that's his kid? But anyway, I digress.
that kid doesn't look like either the mother or the father, to be quite honest.
Yeah, exactly. Like I could see it if he looked like the mother, but he doesn't look like either of them. So Johnny should be demanding a paternity test. but, but in any case, so the kids all go to some party, they all get drunk, and the Daniel's daughter doesn't want her parents to find out that she got drunk at a party, which, like, that's such a huge deal.
Hmm.
I think we've all gotten drunk as teenagers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't understand how they make it a big deal. But in any case, Robbie takes the girl to Johnny's apartment so she can sleep it off. And then Daniel finds out, and he asks Johnny if his daughter is in his apartment. Johnny says yes, but he can't come in. So Daniel freaks out, and they end up getting into a huge fight. Which, again, I'm just like, what? nobody would do that. Like, if you have somebody's daughter, you're not going to be like, yeah, yes, your daughter's here, but you can't come in. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, he could probably have called the police for kidnap or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see Robbie getting kicked out of Daniel's house, which is just okay, whatever. Then they go. I think they go to. Oh, while she was at the party, she made out with Daniel's daughter. Made out with Miguel, which again, why are we supposed to care about either of these people? But he also has this violent girlfriend named Tori.
Who has the violent girlfriend?
Miguel started dating this very violent girl.
Oh, right.
And she finds out, and she's very pissed off at Daniel's daughter, and she starts a fight, and then literally all the kids in the high school start fighting, which again, super unrealistic. They kind of made it like the show, sorry, not the show, the movie Mean Girls.
Right.
But at least that was a comedy, and this is like trying to be serious, so it doesn't work.
Yeah, it sounds as though it's getting more into a sort of a teen,
Soap opera.
yeah, soap kind of thing as time goes on, because it's moving away from the older characters and more
Yeah,
towards the teen characters then.
yeah, absolutely. And it ends up, oh yeah, so Robbie, Johnny's son, ends up kicking Miguel, and he falls down like 3 stories and breaks his neck or something. And
Oh,
he's in the hospital, huh?
oh yeah, I saw that clip. Yes.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? You're supposed to be sad, but I was kind of laughing because it's super slow mo and it's so dramatic, and he's like his arms are reaching out. It's like no, stop. And that's just and then Johnny is so sad and heartbroken over the loss of his surrogate son, which again, movie Johnny would have never taken him on as a surrogate son.
No, that's right. And because he's seen as a sort of quote unquote racist at the beginning. So
Yes, but
it's very odd, that is so suddenly undone.
yes, with like I said, within the span of one episode, he completely changes his mind. And it's so I don't know. I mean, I know a third season is coming out, but I don't know if I will be watching the third season.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, I think
Apparently, Ali's coming back in the third season, isn't she?
yes. Well, I'm kind of hoping that they can get Allie back with Johnny because I'm not down with the race mixing.
As you shouldn't be. That's a good thing. People should, people who are the same should want to stay the same.
There's a great South Park episode where Cartman and his little Cupid me decide to get this black boy and this black girl together. And in the end, Cartman says, "That's right, Cupid me, because people who are the same belong together."
Although Cartman is often the butt of so many jokes, he's actually quite right here.
Yeah, yeah. Cartman actually occasionally makes really good points.
Yeah. Even though he's meant to be this fool and everything, because of course liberals often put truth in the mouths of foolish characters.
Yeah, yeah. Like for example, like that movie. I hated it, but remember that movie American History X, where they take this character who's a violent thug and they have him like saying some statistics which are true, but because it's coming out of his mouth, you're not supposed to take it seriously.
Yeah, I'll tell you the big one, the Blues Brothers,
Yeah,
where they have the Nazi Party of America or whatever it is, and the leader of the Nazi Party, who's is played by Henry Gibb, I think he's called, and he Henry Gibson, sorry. And he's there. He's there with his loudhailer, and he's seen to be a complete fool throughout the film. And he's there with his loudhailer, and he says, "The Negro is being used as muscle by the Jew." Well, I can give you 1,000 examples of it.
BLM.
Yeah, BLM is a current one.
Yeah.
But funded by Soros, of course, and so you put something that is true into the mouth of a foolish character, and people think that the actual words are foolish.
Yeah, yeah. Or, you take a character that people like and have them either always be woke or quickly turn woke.
Absolutely right. Yeah, as a morality, as a moral statement.
Yeah, and it's funny, and I've asked a lot of people what they think about the show because, like I said, it's really popular. Yeah, and you know what? I almost every single person is like, "Oh, it's so great to see Johnny's side of things," and I knew he'd be this way watching the movie. I was like, did we even watch the same movie? I think we're talking about absentee fathers, but absentee mothers suck too.
This is very true. And I think that is maybe a good message to leave this podcast on. That if you have children, look after them.
Yes, and watch the things that they watch. Like, have discussions with your kids about movies and books and TV shows.
Absolutely. And make sure, of course, that they read the good books.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Like,
there are some good ones.
yeah, and I'll give you an example with my own life. I mean, Harry Potter was super popular when I was a kid, and I had a teacher who had us read the first few ones.
Ooh,
And
dear.
a friend of my mother's did not really like Harry Potter, so she was like, you know what, read Tolkien instead.
Yes.
And I really got into the Lord of the Rings because it's a much grander scale than Harry Potter, and I ended up really getting into those. So instead of just telling your kid, hey, like telling them that they're forbidden to do something or read something, you don't want to turn it into the forbidden fruit. Maybe just be like, hey, that's fine, but this is cool, or check this out.
That's right. And it's far better written.
Oh, absolutely. Tolkien was a much, much better writer than Rowling could ever be.
And a much smarter man as well.
Yes. Yes. I doubt that Rowling could ever come up with her own languages.
No. And the thing is about Harry Potter is it really has sort of shaped a generation. And the reason why we're having all these woke politics and everything is a lot to do with the messages imprinted in books like Harry Potter.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, he agrees. Yeah, no, it's true. Like she, all the characters who are, who want to keep their blood pure are evil, and all the characters who want to mix it up are good.
Yeah. And of course, the evil characters who want to keep the blood pure have very white blonde hair.
Yeah, you know what? That's another thing. If you look at the character of Draco Malfoy, physically, he's a lot like Johnny from The Karate Kid.
Yeah, suspicious that, isn't it? How they always attack these people as being evil.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's like, ooh, the blondes are evil.
Yeah.
Although I will say for Harry Potter, she does present the redheads as the good characters. But that's not enough because they're only good because they want to mix it up. So
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting because it's kind of come full circle where J.K. Rowling is now being attacked by the very people she's created. Because she said that trans women don't menstruate, and all of a sudden everyone was up in arms at this, saying something that was a statement of fact, actually. But
You know what? I consider it to be poetic justice.
yeah, it's rather like Victor Frankenstein being hounded by his own monster, isn't it? Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, that's what you get, J.K. or whatever the hell her name is.
Yes. So yeah, read good books. Make sure that your children get access to good books. You'll find some wonderful old books, from the
The Grimm's fairy tales are awesome.
absolutely, because of course they have been in our culture for hundreds or even thousands of years.
Yeah.
And so those are the best tales, really.
Yeah, there's I had so many. I found the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, and I like him, but like a lot of his fairy tales end on a sad note. I think I kind of like the Grimms better in general.
Yeah, I mean, Hans Christian Andersen, you also get a lot of sanitizing and stuff like that. Grimm's fairy tales, they give it to you hard.
Yeah.
There's no sort of dressing things up and making them a bit nicer and stuff. This is actually something that Tolkien commented on. He said that fairy tales should never be sanitized.
And I agree with him 100%. In fact, there's a story in the Grimms where it's this girl and she's supposed to be married off to this man, and this old woman warns her, you can't do this, and then come to find out this man and his family, I think, are like cannibals. So she has to escape. It's and in the Cinderella version of the Grimms, the stepsisters are so desperate to get their feet into the shoes that they're like chopping off their toes to make them fit.
Oh dear.
It's seriously, people, read the Grimms. It sounds scary, but I used to love that kind of thing as a kid, and I think I think he will too.
Yes. And I think that that is a great message to bring this show to a close on.
Yeah, yeah, and and get your kids in sports.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, bye bye. Say bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.